everyone to today's Economic Development Committee meeting. I call this meeting to order. Amy, please do a roll call.
Sure. Chair LaPlante.
Here.
Vice Chair Galassi.
Here.
Member Rutledge.
Here.
Member Coburn. Member Childress.
Here.
And Member Yu.
Here. Great. I move to approve the minutes from our meeting on January 17th, 2023. Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Roll call, please, Amy.
Sure. Chair LaPlante.
Aye.
Vice Chair Galassi.
Aye.
Member Rutledge.
Yeah.
Member Coburn. Member Childress.
Here.
And Member Yu.
Wonderful. As by way of chair remarks, I would just like to welcome Norm Peterson from the Argonne Lab. He's going to be giving us a talk later on. And also our partners, Greg Bedeloff and Beth Marchetti, who are always here to support and help in our economic development initiatives. Moving on, I move to receive and place on file the Incumbent Worker Training Memo. It's informational, 23-0881. Border heating and air conditioning. Thank you. We have it moved in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Next, I move to receive and place on file item 23-0882, Incumbent Worker Training Memo. See, please wait to move in a second till I'm done. Thank you so much. C.H. Hansen Company. Now that's your cue, Michael. Okay, wonderful. There we go. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. We have a resolution. I move to approve item EDR 0016-23, the DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau designation of representation for grant purposes.
Moved.
Wonderful. We have a move and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Congratulations, Beth and DCVB. And now we move to our presentation. Would you like to join me up for, I would say up front, even though it seems like it's in the back. But this is where you will be seen. So I can move over. And I'd like to introduce Norm Peterson from the Argonne Lab. And he is here to give us an update on all the amazing things that is happening at this amazing lab.
Thank you very much. Paul Carnes, the director of the laboratory, was supposed to give this presentation. So 15 minutes ago, I just got an email that he tested positive for COVID.
Oh,
here you are. I think he's asymptomatic, which is great. I'm joined this morning by Sarah Higgins, who will be she's the director of government relations now. I'm in the process of just stepping down. I'll stay at the lab as a senior advisor. So Greg and others are probably, unfortunately, going to be in their life for a little bit longer. So, anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Argonne National Laboratory. So there's 17 Department of Energy laboratories in the complex around the country. Illinois has 2 of the 17. DuPage County has both of those. So we take it for granted living in Illinois of the impact that the Department of Energy National Labs have on our state. If you take a look at the fact that Illinois has 2, California has 3, New Mexico has 2, that means there's 10 labs for the other 47 states. So when Sarah and I are in Washington meeting with congressional members and congressional staff, if we're meeting staff from those states that don't have national labs, the immediate question is, what are you doing for us? The fact that you've got Argonne National Laboratory and Fermi Accelerator Laboratory in Illinois, how does that benefit Iowa or Wisconsin or Michigan, Indiana? I mean, states immediately surrounding Illinois without any national labs. So what I want to do this morning is just give you kind of an overview of what Argonne is, what we do, and also the more importantly, I think, for this group is the impact we have on DuPage County. So you can change the slide, please. So basically, the goal of Argonne, the mission of Argonne is really to accelerate science and technology to drive U.S. prosperity and security. How do we do that? Through scientific discovery, through cutting edge research facilities, and I'll talk a little bit about these in the following slides, but looking at energy, climate solutions, global security advances. So we really also develop scientific leaders and the STEM workforce. So Lisa, you and I were talking a little bit about that this morning. Advance the slide, please. So this is Argonne by the numbers. So we have a $1 billion budget a year. We have 3,500 staff that work at Argonne, 6,000 researchers that come in from all over the world to access Argonne facilities, to work closely with Argonne staff. Within Argonne, there's 5 major research centers that are led by Argonne. These are national research centers that are housed at Argonne and serve as really venues for research venues for, again, researchers all over the world to come in and use these state-of-the-art facilities. 3 sites. Here we are in DuPage County. We also have an office in Washington, D.C. that Sarah recently worked at. She's now moved back to Illinois. And then a 3rd site in the city of Chicago. So just prior to COVID, we opened an office near the University of Chicago to start working more closely with communities, with small businesses in the city. So this is really an experiment, but it's one that's already starting to bear fruit, especially in terms of, again, STEM activities, workforce development.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Can you please, do you have any information on the numbers of countries and nationalities that make up these labs? Because obviously these are some of the best in the world. So it does draw from an international population of scientists. Do you have any data? We
do, we can get that for you. Yeah, we'll
because I think that's fascinating. It's more, that's also what you're bringing to DuPage County. Great.
Absolutely, please.
Thank you.
So Argonne is divided up into 6 directorates. Advanced energy technologies, which looks at materials, energy systems, a lot of infrastructure analysis. We do a lot of work in resiliency. What's the impact of climate change on local communities? A lot of work with states that border the oceans, as you're starting to now look at sea rises. Computing and environmental life sciences. We house one of the fastest supercomputers in the world. We're in the process now of just having, between Intel and Hewlett-Packard, building the fastest supercomputer in the world at Argonne. So that will be the fastest for a while, and then another country or another computer in the US is going to take that over. So that's very much an international race. A lot of work we do in life sciences. Argonne was one of the laboratories that identified the SARS virus before the pandemic. We're closely we did a lot of the imaging work at the Advanced Photon Source. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then did the modeling, the simulation of that virus on the supercomputer at Argonne. So that was working very closely with pharmaceutical companies around the country. So we were able to obviously bring a vaccine to the market very early in the stages of the pandemic. Nuclear technologies, national security. 76 years ago, when Argonne was started, we were a nuclear energy laboratory. So we were charged by the US government to really look at civilian uses of nuclear energy. You had the history there through the University of Chicago. The government obviously spun off the Manhattan Project, but we were set up and tasked with looking at developing civilian uses of nuclear energy. We still have don't have a large nuclear energy program. Most of that has been transferred to the Idaho National Laboratory outside of Idaho Falls, but we still do some scale work and also modeling kind of the next generation of nuclear reactors. Photon Sciences is basically our advanced photon source. We're in the process. This is a hard X-ray light source that was built in the 1980s. This brings in almost 6,000 users a year from around the world to look at imaging materials. So again, we were able to identify the SARS virus and look at being able to kind of identify that, model compounds that would work against that virus, work very closely with pharmaceutical companies, and obviously we were able to bring a vaccine to the marketplace in pretty short order. This is a machine that's going to get shut down in the next few months. It's 30 years old, so we're going to replace all the magnets in that, make it 1,000 times brighter. So this is a machine that was built for about $500 million. We're going through an $800 million upgrade. Wow, at this point.
And what do you do with the leftover materials?
That'll be used probably for other light sources around the world.
So they can still be used.
Yeah, right. Physical sciences and engineering is basically the basic research side of the house. Chemical sciences, material sciences, nanoscience. We have one of the 5 Department of Energy funded nanoscience centers in the country. In our Science and Technology Partnership Outreach Office, a lot of STEM workforce development activities occur there. A lot of outreach in terms of small, medium-sized businesses, tech transfer efforts, or tech transfer. So what's the impact on DuPage County? 1,200 staff from Argonne live in DuPage County. That's about 1/3 of Argonne's population. We about $50 million a year is procured to DuPage County businesses a year. There's 18 outreach programs at colleges and high schools in the area. And this is one of those things that you really start looking at regional impact in terms of STEM, working with local schools. So we bring a number of high school students to the lab every year. Some of those students intern at the laboratory. We have very close working relationships with Illinois Math Science Academy. 6 organizations in DuPage County have active collaborations with Argonne. Some of these are spin-out companies that got started through our accelerator called Chain Reaction Innovation, which works very closely with Innovate DuPage. Again, really creating venues for researchers to come in and mature their technology. Some of those companies now have graduated from Argonne and are staying in DuPage County. Next, please. So I mentioned the large user scale or large user facilities that we have. I want to touch on 2 of those, the advanced photon source that I mentioned. This is a 1 kilometer in circumference ring that produces very hard X-rays. And again, it's 30 years old, so we're going to replace all the magnets and make it 1,000 times brighter. I talked a little bit about our computing facility. When we take, we're having Intel and Hewlett-Packard literally deliver new racks for a machine that we're calling Aurora, which will be, when it gets operational, when it becomes operational, it'll be the fastest supercomputer in the world. And what do you do with this? I mean, you really look at solving problems that the current generation of computers can't do. A good example of that is a number of years ago, we recruited a Rhodes Scholar out of Harvard, joined MD, PhD, who was looking at the connections, the neural connections in the brain. Right, so what do you do with that information? You start looking at being able to identify dementia. What is that? What causes that? when you get plaque buildup in the brain, how much plaque do you need to really start exhibiting symptoms from dementia, Alzheimer's disease? What's a brain in a person with psychosis? What does that look like? How is that different? So this person is studying that right now. The supercomputers around the world are not powerful enough to give him the data that he needs. So he's currently working on a mouse brain. So eventually that will get into primates, and probably 20, 30 years, we'll start getting into looking at the human brain. But that is many generations away from Aurora. These are the things that argon does. We also want to talk a little bit about, in the upper right-hand corner, is an atmospheric radiation monitoring site. We currently operate a site in Oklahoma, and we are in the process of developing a site in Alabama. This looks at climate change issues. You start looking at atmospheric pressure differences. We're all starting to see this now with changes in weather patterns, things like that. But this is data that we're continually examining and looking at differences in data, temperature differences, wind differences, things like that. So we've done that through these various facilities that are located around the country, and Argonne operates two of those. Please. So we talked a little bit about, there's a lot of talk about energy storage in terms of setting up really electric vehicle infrastructures around the country. We've got probably one of the most robust energy storage research programs in the country in terms of national labs. About 11 years ago, we were awarded a Department of Energy competition that looked at the next generation of battery material beyond lithium ion. We still haven't figured that out yet. Neither has Korea or Japan or the EU or the UK or China. It's a holy grail, right? So we know what lithium ion gets us. We all have cell phones, and every 8 hours you gotta plug them in, right? Well, wouldn't it be great to have a new material, identify a new material, that you plug it in once a month? However, for those people that drive electric vehicles and you drive 300 miles and you gotta recharge it, right? So until we really get beyond that, I mean, it's really difficult to penetrate that market, right? People wanna be able to drive 1,000 miles. Lithium ion's not gonna get us there yet. But that's the best that's out there right now. But there's certainly Argonne, a number of other research institutions in this country and around the world are looking at solving that. Next, please. So questions. One of the things we've been talking about is hosting the DuPage County Board at Argonne. So we're in the process of kind of putting that together. So we look forward to having all of you come out and visit and spending a day with us. But happy to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead.
I do. So I'm curious about what you do and what Fermilab does, and if there is an overlap, or if you all have your pet projects or areas of expertise, I guess.
Yeah, so the Department of Energy laboratories are divided up into functions. So we're what we call a multi-purpose science laboratory. So we do chemistry and physics and biology and nanoscience and have these big facilities. Fermilab is a single-purpose laboratory. It's a high-energy physics facility.
Okay.
So we have a very, very small high-energy physics program. And there are a number of what they call single purpose facilities. There's a fusion laboratory at Princeton. You've got Fermi Laboratory. There's Idaho National Laboratory, which works a lot on nuclear issues. That's in Idaho Falls. There's a material science laboratory in Ames, Iowa. And then there's 3 national security laboratories, Los Alamos and Sandia in New Mexico, and Lawrence Livermore in California.
So of all of those facilities, do you have a broader
yes.
Base than any of the others?
We have Brookhaven National Laboratory in Long Island, Oak Ridge, Argonne, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in Richland, Washington. All are multi-purpose science laboratories with a broader scientific mission.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment. Argonne's been a wonderful partner with ours, with the CVB for many, many years. We don't fish in our own backyard as a Convention and Visitors Bureau, but our hotel sales people, we're drilling down way farther. We're not dealing with scientists here, but I wanted to say the 6,000 people that you have coming in, our hotel salespeople are calling on you and offering local negotiated rates. So again, the CVB doesn't fish in our own backyard, but you're contributing tremendous economic value to the hotels and the industry and the sales tax that's going on. International visitors, I think that's a really great question because international visitors usually spend 4 times the amount of money because they're here for longer.
Yeah.
Again, I just wanted to say thank you because of the 4 million rooms, a significant portion does come from Fermi and Argonne. And what we do is try to keep those hotel rooms in DuPage County as much as possible. So thank you for your partnership.
Yeah, and it's interesting, when Argonne was going after the advanced photon source 30 years ago, I mean, this was a competitive proposal. So the US Department of Energy said they were going to build this either in Long Island or Stanford or Illinois. So the state of Illinois stepped up and invested $19 million in Argonne to build a guest house. Right, so that was a state contribution. It leveraged a $500 million facility that so far has brought over $3 billion into the state, as well as 6,000 users a year. But those facilities are, when they're operational, they're 24/7. So oftentimes you can get bean time at 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning. So people stay at Argonne, or they certainly want to stay in nearby hotels because they're going to have to get up very early to access that equipment.
I have a question about recruiting from DuPage County. Now, I know obviously you're recruiting internationally because this type of expertise and education and knowledge is not limited to one geographic location, and you have to get the best of the best. So that being said, do you have any particular attention or paid to scientists within DuPage County? I know you said 18 students, and you do that correlation between some of the STEM courses and Illinois Math and Science, which is wonderful. But do you pay attention at all or have any metrics by which you know how many people you've sort of swept up locally?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have metrics in terms of, again, the number of people from DuPage County. We do recruit internationally, and there's certainly a big asterisk on international.
Yeah.
But certainly, oftentimes the requirements are very, very specific. So we'll recruit nationally from universities. If you look at kind of a typical business in terms of kind of numbers of PhDs and masters and bachelors, you kind of have this triangle where the smallest amount have PhDs and right on down. Argonne's just flipped that over, right? More PhDs, more postdocs than masters, more masters than bachelors. But certainly it's, I mean, there's a big criteria. People that live here want to work here. People oftentimes that are hired here will have to live here.
Yeah.
So certainly there's strong interest in terms of bringing local people into the
yeah. And then, yes, there's one more question here.
Well, and I can just speak to that because I had a client that I just sold him a property in DuPage County who works for Fermi Lab, who used to be in Cook County. So it does actually transition people into the county. Young guy, so smart, my brain's like blew up. And his position is basic. And again, he made it very, very simple for the simple-minded when it comes to this stuff. But it was basically, if you dropped a pin, what do you think would happen with the pin? I immediately said it would bounce on the floor. He goes, no. It might go through the table. And then what happens after it comes out on the other side of the table? I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I'm so glad you're doing that job. Young guy, totally thought out of the box, not, retained in the way thinking that we are. And that's what Fermi Lab offers. I mean, they've got such a great, great group of people working there, so.
And does Argonne, do you still offer lectures and things like that for the public?
That's just starting to wrap up again. Obviously, for the last 3 years, you know, the laboratory, like all the labs around the country, it was a great deal of telecommuting.
Mm-hmm.
We're still, Sarah and I usually go on 1 or 2 days a week, but we do things like this. We travel, things like that. But no, those are things that are starting to wrap up.
That's what my parents used to take us to. We used to go to physics lectures on the weekends at the lab. Oh man, those were some real fun times.
So we're going to do a physics quiz to everybody.
But they were actually, I mean, I could only understand, you know, 30 to 40% of it, but it did hook one of my brothers. He's a physicist.
30 to 40% is probably better than me with degrees in urban planning and social.
There you go.
Yes,
There you go.
In January, we recognized the NAACP's AXO program. And I just wanted to call out is the fact that we've medaled, for those that don't know what AXO is, it's Academic Olympics for African-American students. Illinois has led the country in STEM research and medals. And we've partnered with Argonne Labs for years. And they have been completely instrumental in moving us forward. We're the gold standard for the AXO program around the country because of Argonne Labs.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any more questions? Mr. Bedell?
I just wanted to make one comment for the committee's knowledge. A couple of things. No conversation with Argonne would be complete without talking about collaboration. Argonne always steps up from an economic development perspective. You're all aware of GSEP, the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. One of the things that we're charged with is defining regional assets for Northeastern Illinois, and Argonne and Fermi are at the top of that list. Because as Norm pointed out, when you're selling the region, having 2 national laboratories within your region jumps you ahead of everybody else. But on the ground level, when we brought the Connect DuPage program to Argonne to help small businesses, women and minority-owned businesses learn how to buy from governmental agencies, Norm and Sarah said, when's the next meeting? Because we buy a lot and we would love to educate the business community in DuPage on how they can sell their goods and services to Argonne as well. So we're working with Argonne on the Connect DuPage program.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, any other questions? Thank you so much, Norm. This is a wonderful presentation. Looking forward to our I had accidentally skipped public comment. Amy, do we have any public comments?
We
do not. Okay. I'm 99% sure. Thank you. Do we have any old business? Seeing none. Any new business? Okay, I see none of that either. Then this meeting is adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you. This meeting is adjourned until next month. Thank you, everyone.